Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something that sounds a bit sci-fi, but is actually pretty real. The quantum apocalypse.
Yeah, it's this idea that quantum computers could soon break all the encryption we rely on. It's a massive cybersecurity threat.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really unpack that. We're looking at when this might happen, what the fallout could be, and importantly, what's being done to prepare. We got some great sources to help us.
We do. There's an article, kind of alarming, titled "The Quantum Apocalypse is Coming. Be Very Afraid." Sets the mood, right?
Definitely grabs your attention.
And then we have the Quantum Threat Timeline Report 2024 from the Global Risk Institute. That one's more data-heavy, based on expert surveys.
So we'll blend the drama with the data, basically. The goal is for you listening to really get a solid grasp of this without needing, a quantum physics degree.
Precisely. So let's start with the basics. Q-Day. What are we actually talking about?
Right, Q-Day.
It's essentially the day a quantum computer exists that's powerful enough to crack the standard encryption methods we use everywhere. Think RSA, that kind of thing.
And the consequences. I mean, the article painted a pretty stark picture. Emails, texts, supposedly anonymous posts.
All potentially exposed, yeah. Location data, Bitcoin wallets, police records, hospital files. It's vast.
Even critical stuff like power stations, the whole financial system. The article called it a universal pick lock for digital secrets.
That's a good way to put it. It really highlights the scale. And the urgency is building. That Global Risk Institute report, they surveyed experts.
Yeah, what do they find?
They reckon there's about a 1 in 3 chance of Q-Day happening before 2035.
1 in 3.
Mm.
In like the next 10 years or so. Wow.
It's significant, and the article we read mentions some experts think there's even a 15% chance it's already happened. Secretly, of course.
That's unsettling. Makes you think.
Definitely. Dr. Mikhail Moska, who co-authored the GRI report, he's from a company called Evolution Q. He put it bluntly in the article, "We're kind of playing Russian roulette."
Yeah, that quote stood out. He wrote the report with Dr. Marco Piani, right? Also from Evolution Q.
That's them. The report itself, it has these images. A glowing cube representing a quantum computer, the Evolution Q logo, the Global Risk Institute logo. It looks quite official.
And it really emphasizes that progress just in the last year has made this whole threat feel, well, closer. It's not some distant theoretical thing anymore.
Exactly. And they talk about this thing called the Moska inequality. It's kind of a risk calculation.
Oh, break that down a bit.
Well, it looks at 3 things. First, how long your data needs to stay secret, its shelf life. Second, how long it takes to switch everything over to new quantum-safe encryption, the migration time.
Right.
And third, the threat timeline when we think Q-Day might actually arrive.
Okay.
So the inequality basically says if your data's shelf life plus the time it takes to upgrade is longer than the time you have until Q-Day, you're in trouble. You need to act fast.
Especially for data that needs to be kept secret for a really long time, like government secrets or medical records.
Yeah. Precisely. That's where the urgency really kicks in.
Okay, so we get the what and the when, might be sooner than we think, but how? How do these quantum computers actually do this? Our current encryption feels pretty unbreakable.
Yeah, it relies on math problems that are incredibly hard for normal computers. But quantum computers work differently. Fundamentally differently.
It's not just these ones, right?
Exactly. Classical computers use bits either 0 or 1, on or off. Simple. Quantum computers use qubits.
Qubits.
And qubits can be 0 or 1, or, and this is the mind-ending part, they can be a combination of both at the same time. It's called superposition.
Like a dimmer switch instead of a hard on-off switch. It can be anywhere in between.
That's a great analogy, yeah. And that in-between state lets them explore many possibilities simultaneously. So think about breaking RSA encryption.
Which relies on factoring huge numbers, right? Easy to multiply 2 big primes. Practically impossible for normal computers to go backwards and find the original primes from the result.
Right. That result is the public key. The original primes are the private key. Classical computers have to try possible factors one by one. Takes forever, millennia, for the numbers used in encryption.
But quantum computers?
They can use something called Shor's algorithm. Peter Shor figured this out back in '94. It's the killer Q-Day app the article mentioned.
Okay.
Shor's algorithm uses those qubits in superposition to, well, essentially check a vast number of potential factors all at once. Instead of trying keys one after another, it's like they're trying huge batches in parallel.
So what takes a normal computer billions of years,
Hmm.
a quantum computer using Shor's could potentially do in minutes?
That's the potential, yes. It completely changes the game for factoring-based encryption like RSA.
Wow. Okay. But if it's so powerful, why don't we have these code-breaking machines already? What's the catch?
The catch is building the hardware. Qubits are incredibly fragile.
Fragile how?
They're super sensitive to, well, everything. Noise, temperature changes, tiny vibrations. Anything in the environment can knock them out of that delicate superposition state. It's called decoherence.
So keeping them stable long enough to do a complex calculation like Shor's is the big challenge, like that house of cards in a hurricane idea.
Exactly. It's a massive engineering problem.
So who's working on this, and how close are they?
Oh, all the big players are in the game. The article mentions Google, Huawei, IBM, Microsoft, plus huge government efforts, China, the US, the EU. It's a global race.
I remember Google made a splash a few years ago, quantum supremacy.
Yeah, 2019. They claimed their 53-qubit chip did a specific calculation in 200 seconds that would take a classical supercomputer like 10,000 years.
Okay, impressive. But 53 qubits isn't enough to break RSA, is it?
No, not even close. We're talking thousands, maybe millions of stable, high-quality qubits needed for Shor's algorithm to crack serious encryption. Google's latest processor, Willow, has 105 qubits. So, progress, but still a way to go.
And there are different ways to build these qubits.
Lots of different approaches. The GRI report talks about superconducting circuits. That's what Google and IBM mostly use. But also trapped ions, molecular magnets, even things like carbon nanospheres and cold atom arrays.
Cold atom arrays.
Yeah, the report actually highlights them as making significant strides recently. It included a chart showing expert opinions on which tech might get us to around 100 logical qubits first.
Logical qubits, what's that?
Ah, right. So physical qubits are the fragile ones we've been talking about. Logical qubits are like robust qubits built out of many physical qubits using clever error correction techniques. They're much more stable and useful for computation.
Okay, so we need lots of physical qubits to make one good logical qubit.
Basically, yes. And the report suggests superconducting systems are maybe leading now for reaching that 100 logical qubit in the next decade, but other methods are catching up.
It quoted Stephanie Simmons from Photonic Inc., right?
Yeah.
Saying spin systems with new error correction codes might speed things up.
Yeah, QLDPC codes she mentioned. And Tracy Northup from Innsbruck suggested we might need networks of smaller processors linked together to get there.
The report also had those charts showing the estimated likelihood of breaking RSA 2048 within 24 hours, over 5, 10, 15 years, etc.
And the probability definitely goes up over time. No surprise there.
But comparing the surveys since 2019 showed a consistent increase in that perceived likelihood, right? Like, experts generally feel we're getting closer each year.
That's the trend, yeah. Steady progress, even if the exact timeline is fuzzy.
And it's not just RSA encryption that's vulnerable, is it? The article listed others.
Oh, yeah. Definitely not just RSA. There's DSA, the digital signature algorithm, which the U.S. government used until fairly recently.
Okay.
Then there's elliptic curve cryptography, or ECC.
Yeah.
That's what secures things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's based on a different hard math problem, but guess what?
Quantum computers have an algorithm for that, too.
Yep. A variation of Shor's, basically.
Yeah.
So crypto wallets could be at risk. VPNs, potentially. Those random number generators used by online casinos. Smart cards, maybe home Wi-Fi security. Even some forms of two-factor authentication.
Wow, even 2FA. That's supposed to be the safer option.
Well, some methods rely on cryptographic principles that could be weakened. It depends on the specifics. And then there's this whole other angle.
What's that?
The harvest now, decrypt later strategy.
Oh, right. The idea that people are stealing encrypted data now, even though they can't read it yet.
And just storing it, waiting for a powerful enough quantum computer to come online in the future.
That's kind of terrifying. Who's doing that?
The article points fingers at state-sponsored groups, particularly linked to China. Brian Mullins from Mind Foundry had that quote, "There might be some needles in that haystack."
Yeah, like old fingerprints or intelligence lists that suddenly become valuable again years later when decrypted.
Exactly. So the threat isn't just about future secrets, but past ones too.
And it's not only about secrecy, right? The article mentioned authentication, proving who you are online.
That's a huge one. Deborah Frink from Sandia Labs was quoted on this. Encryption is fundamental to how we verify identity digitally.
So if encryption breaks,
Then potentially attackers could impersonate legitimate users or systems. Imagine someone sending malicious commands to critical infrastructure, like the power grid or military systems, pretending to be an authorized operator.
The article had some chilling scenarios for Q-Day itself, like a series of weird failures or a full-on disaster movie collapse.
Yeah, the exact form is unknown, but the potential for chaos is clear,
Hmm.
which leads to thinking about what the world looks like after Q-Day.
And it didn't sound good. A collapse in digital trust, trying to update systems over networks you can't even trust anymore.
Roger Grimes predicted we might revert to Cold War tactics, sending hard drives by plane, using one-time pads.
Imagine the economic slowdown if everything goes back to paper. And that post-privacy society idea, where digital privacy is just gone.
It's a pretty bleak outlook if we're unprepared.
Okay, so let's talk about preparation. Is there anything we can do? The article mentioned quantum-proof encryption.
Yes, that's the main line of defense. It's often called post-quantum cryptography, or PQC.
And NIST, the U.S. standards body, has been working on this.
They have. They ran a big competition starting back in 2016, asking cryptographers worldwide to submit algorithms based on math problems believed to be hard even for quantum computers.
What kind of problems?
Things involving complex, multidimensional structures called lattices or hash-based signatures, stuff that doesn't rely on factoring or the elliptic curve problems that Shor's algorithm can solve.
And they've picked some winners.
They have. Just last summer, 2024, NIST released the first set of official standards. FIX 203, 204, and 205 are the designations, based on those lattice and hash-based approaches.
FIPS being Federal Information Processing Standards. So these are now the recommended methods.
Pretty much. President Biden signed an executive order telling U.S. government agencies to start moving towards these NIST algorithms as soon as practicable. The original deadline mentioned was 2035, but the push is to get started now.
Are we seeing this happen outside government?
We are, yeah.
Yeah.
Messaging apps like Signal and iMessage have already started rolling out post-quantum encryption for their communications. That's a positive sign.
But upgrading everything sounds like a nightmare. The article mentioned older systems, physical infrastructure.
Oh, it's a monumental challenge. Think about ancient hospital systems. The UK's NHS was mentioned. Old versions of Windows that are still running critical stuff somewhere. Power grids, military hardware, satellites.
Ali Al-Kafirani from PQ Shield was quoted saying Microsoft probably won't upgrade its oldest systems. They'll just expect people to move on.
That's often the reality. And Chris Ballance from Oxford Ionics raised that key point. How fast can we transition while still being absolutely sure these new algorithms are actually secure? We need speed and confidence.
And there's always that worry about backdoors, right? Like the Snowden stuff revealed about an older NIST standard.
That history definitely casts a shadow. Rob Young from Lancaster University warned about being cautious with algorithms pushed by specific governments. Trust is a huge factor here.
It really is. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're developing defenses.
Yeah.
But it's a massive upgrade task with trust issues. Meanwhile, this quantum race is heating up.
Absolutely. The GRI report looked at this global competition. Tech giants, governments, everyone's pouring money in.
Who do the experts think is leading?
Right now, the perception is North America is out front, and most experts surveyed think they'll stay there for the next 5 years.
But China.
China is seen as having huge potential and being a very strong contender. Europe maybe lagging a bit in expectations currently, but countries like Japan and Australia are also in the mix. Frank Wilhelm Marsh specifically noted Japan's strong, consistent performance.
The report had charts on that, didn't it?
Yeah.
And on where unexpected breakthroughs might come from.
Yeah, hardware improvements and better error correction were highlighted as key areas to watch for surprises.
So it's a race with huge stakes. But it's not all about breaking codes or defense, is it? There are positive applications.
Oh, absolutely. That's the other side of the coin. Quantum sensors could be incredibly sensitive, detecting stealth ships, mapping underground structures, maybe even providing new medical insights.
And drug discovery. Pharma companies must be interested.
Hugely. Designing new molecules, understanding complex biological processes. Though the article also noted the risk of, say, stealing rival drug designs using quantum power.
Right. The article had that interesting idea. Maybe the best way to avoid the apocalypse is to focus on sharing the benefits, creating a quantum utopia instead.
It's a compelling thought. Focus on collaboration over confrontation. Whether it's realistic, who knows?
The GRI report also dug into ongoing challenges, right? Beyond just building the hardware.
Yeah, experts pointed to the sheer difficulty of controlling quantum phenomena. The need for modular architectures linking smaller quantum computers together came up.
And the fact that we don't actually have that many useful quantum algorithms yet, besides Shor's and a few others.
That was a concern raised, yes. Is the software keeping pace with the hardware potential? And also, the race mentality itself might be hindering open collaboration, which could actually speed things up.
But despite the challenges, the report noted real progress in the last year, especially error correction.
Definitely. Significant experimental steps towards fault-tolerant quantum computing. They mentioned things like programmable atom arrays, getting error rates below critical thresholds, demonstrating specific error correction codes like the Tesseract code. Real, tangible progress.
Sounds technical, but the takeaway is they're getting better at making qubits behave.
That's the gist, which is why one expert specifically advised cyber risk managers to track progress in quantum error correction closely. It's a key indicator.
And looking just ahead, like by summer 2025, what did the experts think was the next big step?
Continued focus on lowering error rates, improving those error correction schemes, and building those modular systems. It's all about getting to reliable, fault-tolerant machines.
What about funding? Is the money still flowing in?
Overall, expectations for increases in funding were a bit lower than last year, but still, a strong majority expect investment to go up or significantly up. Joe Fitzsimons commented that recent error correction progress might be boosting confidence.
And Nicholas Minicucci pointed out the strong government funding, right? Because it's seen as strategically vital for defense and cybersecurity.
Exactly. So despite maybe some cooling in venture capital, the public money seems solid because the stakes are so high.
But the report also warned about taking these expert surveys as gospel, didn't it?
Yes, important caveats. Forecasting is hard. Averaging opinions can hide nuances. The group of experts surveyed might change year to year. It's a snapshot, not a perfect prediction. The perceived threat level shifts based on discoveries, funding, the economy. It's dynamic.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, Q-Day, the quantum code-breaking threat, is real. It's serious. And the timeline might be, well, uncomfortably close. Experts see a significant chance within the next decade or so.
That's the headline, yeah. And the main takeaway for action is that preparing for it, switching to post-quantum cryptography, is a huge time-consuming job. We need to be doing that now. It's cryptographic modernization, and waiting isn't really an option.
It really leaves you thinking. This technology holds the power for potentially catastrophic disruption, the quantum apocalypse, but also incredible advancements, that quantum utopia. Which path will dominate? Will we win the race to secure ourselves in time?
Or will the promise of the benefits change the dynamic? It's the big question for this era, maybe.
And for you listening, knowing this, what should you or your organization be thinking about? It's something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on the